Oh, hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. You're probably clicking on this video because you bought coilovers, adjustable coilovers, and you gotta adjust the preload on this thing. What is preload? How do you adjust it properly? Does preload affect the spring compression rate? And all that will be answered on this video, so keep watching. All right, guys, so this is the coilover here. We have a few adjustment points right now, but most likely when you're getting this out of the box, everything is going to be loose and you will have to adjust it by yourself. Now, these are better style coilovers where you have the spring adjustment separate to your height adjustment. So what we're going to be doing, we're going to be making sure the preload is set properly. As you can see right now, there is no load on the spring. And you don't want to install your coilovers like this because you're going to get so much noise and it's really going to be not set up properly. So the main thing is here, we want to adjust and tighten the spring just a little bit according to some manufacturer recommendations. And the first thing you want to do here, you just want to reduce this gap that you have right here by hand. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to spin the bottom perch here that's under the spring by hand as much as I can until there's not much play in the spring. So we're just going to keep turning it here to some point. So right now there's just a tiny bit of space left. A couple more turns here. And right now the spring is sitting for the most part flush right here. And what you want to do at this point, you want to bring the bottom locking perch to the top of that. And now we're going to tighten up the top perch just about a couple mils, right? And a guide that I've been seeing is they're taking their spanner wrenches and they're increasing the spring load, the spring tension, just about the size of this. If this fits in between the top perch and the bottom perch, your preload is set properly. So that's what we're going to do right now. The bottom is locked right here. We're going to turn over the top. A few turns here. And we're going to see if the perch or the wrench fits. It doesn't fit yet, so we're going to keep adjusting this. And again, this is creating some preload, some tension on the spring. And let's see. Right there, you guys can see the perch fits perfect right there. So at this point, we're going to take the bottom locking nut and lock it here nice and tight. And the preload on this coilover is adjusted. It's as simple as that. And as you guys see from the beginning when the spring was moving all around, right now the spring is nice and firm. That's a cheap, efficient way to do it. It doesn't require any measurement tools. You just use your spanner wrench or wrenches that are included with your coilover setup. Now you can also from this point keep turning it, maybe let's say another wrench size. Put the wrench right in here, preload it some more. But load too much isn't going to give you too many benefits, and too much preload actually is going to reduce the efficiency range of the spring and the shock and where it's working and where it's absorbing. So you don't want to do too much preload. You don't want to do too little preload. You just want it right and consistent between all your shocks here. Now, one thing I'm observing and I'm noticing is, even though again the preload is adjusted properly right here, if I actually move the spring from the top hat here back and forth, I can actually move the spring a little bit from where it's sitting. So the question comes to mind, is that enough preload or is that not enough preload? And we're going to see actually. We're going to set the preload here just like this on the normal setting, one wrench size. And we'll see, we'll put it on the car, we'll see if it's noisy. In that case, if it is, we can always add some more preload on it so the spring doesn't move on top. I think we'll be okay, but that's just something to consider. And if you guys have more experience on that, you guys let me know. Once that is set, the preload, one thing I'm going to do right now is just verify the preload I'm gonna actually take off this whole assembly here on the bottom, and I'll show you guys what I'm doing. All right, at this point, I'm gonna take a measurement from the bottom of the locking perch to the bottom of the shock tower. Make a note exactly the length of this. And then when we adjust the second coilover, we're gonna make sure the length adjustment on this one is the same as this one. And again, if we want a little bit more preload, which you don't want to be too excessive on the preload, but we can tighten it up again a little bit and then do a measurement, make sure they're even, and then you are all set. All right, so this spring right here is 200 millimeters long. So essentially what you can do, you can measure the spring when it's not compressed, and you will see the length of the spring. And once after you do your preload adjustment, which again should be around 4 to 5 millimeters long, you're going to measure that spring height again, and it should be 4 or 5 millimeters shorter, saying you actually have 4 to 5 millimeters of preload, and that is the correct preload. Now, most coilovers will have linear springs, not progressive springs. If you guys don't know what the difference is, a linear spring has the same compression. A linear spring has the same stiffness no matter how much the spring is compressed, whether it's an inch or 2 inches or 3 inches. It is very linear and it has the same compression load, whereas a progressive spring, like most spring setups on the street, they're progressive, meaning they're softer in the beginning, and as you increase the compression and the load, they get stiffer. But most coilovers will be linear, and again, from my research here online, your preload won't affect your spring rate of the spring, so that is a myth. Essentially, what I'm getting from all of this, and which you should consider, is the least amount of preload, the better. It's gonna keep the shock efficient, the shock travel, the spring travel. Just make sure it's tight enough with the least amount of spring preload, which is again 4 to 5 mils. Lock it up, tighten it up. Again, you can check the spring height to verify preload, and you can also check the bottom of the perch to the bottom of the shock to double check the preload adjustment. And that is it. That is as simple as it is. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video.